Good morning, Kitchen Witches. This is your tarot and menu inspiration for the day. I'm Chef Lisa, editor-in-chief of A Chef's Grimoire magazine, which is right here. This, by the way, is the first issue. Very first issue. I'm calling them chapters, but you can see right there it says issue 0. And I'm naming each chapter. This one's called Timeless because it is. It starts with the Fool, as any journey would. And if you flip into this, I mean, the graphics just pop off the page. They're beautiful. And I start with the history of a fool, how the fool has evolved in our society and how they're thought of today. We move on to how to menu plan with the fool, right? So you've got to learn the system if you're going to use it. So this goes into detail of how to menu plan with the tarot cards. I use the Fool as my first example. I have a spice chart in here, which when you think of it, right, every country in the world kind of utilizes the same proteins, same starches more or less, same vegetables, but it's the spices and how you season these things is what makes them cuisine different, right? So how I'm going to season Mediterranean meals is not how I'm going to season Spanish meals. Just not. I'm going to use different spices. So it's here in a spice chart. What else? And then I have cooking with the elements. So you learn how to cook with the element of fire, air, water, and earth. And then the recipes are color-coded. So the red ones are for fire. And then I have yellow for air, and then I have green for earth, and guess what? Blue for water. So you've got a bunch of recipes in here, which are in every magazine. And then we talk briefly. This one I didn't really get into much detail, but we briefly go over the Wheel of the Year. And this one was in bulk because it came out in January. And then we finish, dun dun dun, with this amazing yogurt layer cake that you can do, believe it or not. It's super simple. I wouldn't put it in here. It's recipes for the fool. So anybody can do them. Know that you can view this in flipbook form anytime you wish. It's free. So you would go to achefsgrimoire.com/the-reading, and you'd see the flip book, and you can see what for yourself if it's something that interests you. And I hope it does, because I've just released back issues on my website on achefsgrimoire.com that you can purchase for all the back issues in either hard copy, of course, always, but now you can purchase them in a digital flipbook style or a PDF style. It's up to you, but they're all in the shop now. So it gives you, you can pick and choose which ones you want, which is kind of nice, right? A little diversity. And if you just don't know what to choose and you just want to get it to your inbox every month or every 3 months when the issue comes out or the chapter comes out, then subscribe. And those or all that information will be in the description and or show notes of this post. What am I doing? Video. There you go. Okay, all that out of the way. Now let's get into the nitty gritty, which is turning our card for the day. It's our daily inspiration as well as menu planning. So we'll shuffle 3 times and see what comes up. 2. If you've tuned into this channel before, thank you and welcome. If you've never tuned in before, I don't always go into this big hard sell pitch, but because I just released the copies for sale, the digital copies for sale, I figured I'd put it in this video. 3. So welcome. What is our card? Our card is the Star. The Star card is First of all, it comes directly after the Tower. It is numbered 18. And the Tower is when the rug is just ripped out from underneath us and everything goes to, falls away, right? Things that we probably don't want to dissolve from our life do. And it does for a reason, right? Our higher self, the universe, all of that, they know what's best for us, and we may not. So the Tower moments happen when you just didn't pay attention, when all the little nudges were telling you, right? If it's a relationship, maybe there's been some nudges that, like, you're constantly crying, or you're constantly anxious, or you feel deceived, but you don't know why, right? All that's been with you for a while, and then all of a sudden, right, the whole thing blows up in one way or another. That's a Tower moment. You've been weaving in and out of traffic and driving not too carefully. And all of a sudden, bang, you get into a really bad accident. Thank God you're okay, but your car's totaled. Tower moment. And you could have seen that coming. What else? I could go on and on, but we're not talking about the Tower because we're talking what happens about with the star, what happens after the Tower moment, right? Of course, you're dazed and confused. You have a little bit of depressional state. You're in you're shock. You're in shock of what just happened. So you need a little time to heal. But then the star comes out. And the star glistens in the sky. And you, just like the Five of Cups, may be looking at all the spilled cups, but those two behind you are still standing. And they want your attention, just like the star. The star wants your attention in this moment. The Tower is huge. It's a huge moment. That's why it's a major arcana. So the recovery is no less of a big deal, right? It's huge. Hence, the star being a major arcana. So we'll look at the little symbolism in the card. We have a naked woman. So what happens after something is annihilated from your life and you weren't thinking it was going to happen? You're completely vulnerable to that thing, right? So nakedness in the tarot means that it is vulnerability. So you have nothing more to hide. It's been ripped away. You're just like, okay, all right, here I am. And here she is. And there's one leg on solid ground and one foot that is in the water. So that's conscious on the ground and subconscious in the water, right? We also see the two pails that are streaming water back into the water. So that's giving back to the earth, right? We have our, when we go inward and start to be, feeling sorrowful, the tears that we cry are a release. And where do they fall? They fall to the ground. So they get buried back into the ground. So hopefully all those emotions can flow, but they have somewhere to go, which is to ground themselves back into the ground so that they can sprout anew. And that's what's happening here, right? Because the water is pouring, and in this one, it's going directly into the pond that they're in, and it's causing a ripple effect. So each drop of water that lands into the pool of water starts a ripple that may be the next thing to recover from the Tower moment that just happened. So that is conscious and in her right hand. And then in her left hand is the one that's going onto the earth. And what is that doing? It's if you can see, it's starting to make its own 5 streams, right? So they're not within the giant pool, but they're starting anew. They're starting new streams. And these are streams of consciousness, right? Because it's on the earth and it's our 5 senses, which you need really to recover. Remember, anything we do, we go back to the magician who taught us about the 4 elements and how to use them. But we have 5 senses, and we also need to know how to use them. And this is pouring everything back into the earth so that the earth can now help us understand where to go next. We've got the stars. Obviously, the large star is the hope, the illumination. It's making everything clear, right, where it wasn't before. And then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stars around that star. And each of those represent a chakra, right? The 7 chakras. So there's a lot of symbolism here. There's a bird of some sort, almost like the dove, right, on Noah's Ark, right? They didn't see land for days, but then it comes back with an olive branch, and that's hope. We've got hope, right? There's land. So that's what I think. I could be wrong, but that's what the bird represents, and they may very well be sitting atop an olive tree. Yeah, there's mountains in the background, but they're way in the background because that hurdle has been climbed. Now in the forefront, it's nothing but green grass and new beginnings. And that's exactly what this card means, right? So when the star shows up, it means your future is bright, right? There's more unlimited potential that you had when you started the journey with the Fool. But you've gone through a lot has been taken away from you, and it's been taken away for a reason, because you didn't need it, right? You didn't need that thing. You didn't need that emotion. You didn't need that vice, whatever that vice was. And you didn't certainly need the road rage, right? Get it out of your life. Go. And if it has to come to a tower moment to make that happen, well, guess what? It does. So the next step is and this is an ongoing theme with much in the tarot. When something goes away or we have a pause, it's getting ready for the next step. And that's exactly what this card does. Because the next step is, guess what? Moving into the world of the moon. The moon, numbered 18, is going really inward to our subconscious. And things seem a little hazy. It's clarity here after a very tumultuous moment. And then all of a sudden we start to maybe get a little foggy, right? Because you have to take the dive into the underworld to get your bearings, maybe, so to speak. Because right after the moon is the sun, where clarity returns. Yeah? So it's an arc, but this is the card that has the most hope. It's the one that instills the hope. It's when there's been a huge forest fire, right? And everybody's very depressed because maybe some homes have been lost in that fire. And now, everybody's searching through the rubble, and maybe, just maybe, you overturn something that's ashen, completely dissipates in your fingers because it's so burnt and charred. But underneath it, maybe just a little flower or a seedling just starting to come up out of the ash. That's the star, right? So the question of the day is, if things went awry today, how could you get over that moment? If it was your home that was lost in that fire, do you have plan B? Let's say that. Let's say with this card, do you have a plan B for everything that's happening in your life? Do you? So maybe, maybe not. And if you don't, what would be the thing that you can go to help you recover faster? I personally think that it's being conscious of everything around you, everything you have. First of all, taking care of it, but second of all, being grateful for it. Because if you're not grateful for something, it's usually that thing that gets taken away. Because that's a tower moment, right? You're not grateful for it. It's an everyday thing. It's just there. It'll always be there. Or will it? So there you go. Big lesson. Big card. The star. So let's bring this star card into the kitchen. And I'm thinking, let's learn a new skill. So for breakfast, have you ever made pie dough from scratch before? Well, if you have, then this is going to be easy because it's called it's puff pastry. It's really no different than pie dough, except the butter chunks are larger and you're going to layer it more. Now, there's a very old French technique of a way to build this puff pastry, but people have gotten savvy to it over the years, and now there's something called a rough puff, which is not as technically difficult, right? It's almost like building pie dough, only you've got a little bit more finesse in how you're folding it. You know, how many times you fold it, how much you work with it. You have to refrigerate it between rolling out and folding. But it's not difficult. It's just a technique-driven recipe. So because of that, I figured, why not learn it, right? Who doesn't love puff pastry? Who doesn't love pie dough that's flaky and gorgeous? So get yourself some flour, get butter, and ice water, literally. And a little salt. That's it. That's all you need. So it's not an expensive hobby. And you certainly, once you do it once, twice, maybe 3 times, you'll perfect it. And then after that, you can make it anytime. So puff pastry or a rough puff pastry. So put that in your repertoire and learn it. And then if you do, your breakfast can be a breakfast tart with Gruyere eggs, ricotta, chives, sausage, and a little sesame seeds around the crust. And you're going to make it almost like a galette. So you're going to lay down the puff pastry, put the eggs that either are cracked and you bake them with the galette, or scramble them, bake the galette off, right, without anything in it, and then you add the scrambled eggs, and you add the cheese, and you add, everything you want in there that's already pre-cooked in there. And delicious breakfast. But the sesame seeds outside the crust really just turn it into something special. So don't forget that. That's breakfast. Puff pastry, rough puff pastry. For lunch, learn the technique of how to steam a dumpling. So first you're going to make your dumplings, right? And if you're going to do that and you're going to learn how to steam them correctly, then might as well make the dumpling batter too, because it's super easy. So you can use an all-purpose flour. You don't have to get anything fancy, and you make the dumpling wrapper or the dough. And then you roll it out. You stuff it with whatever filling you want. Go ahead and get a recipe online for dumplings. These are Asian dumplings. Now we're going to steam them. So you want a hot pan that has a really tight fitting lid. You get it on high and you add oil to the pan. And then you take your dumplings that are beautifully crimped and beautifully, all the stuff on making them beautiful. And you put them into the fry pan and you fry the bottoms until they're golden brown. And they're golden brown because you can pick them up every once in a while and check underneath them. Then as quickly as you can, pour about a 1/4 cup of water into the dumplings that are frying. And immediately the steam is going to start to come up. It's going to make a big old noise. Don't be nervous. Just have your lid ready. And that goes on top. And then everything's going to calm down inside the pan. And the dumplings are going to steam. So all of the raw meat, if you put in there, or raw shrimp, or whatever is inside the dumpling now is going to cook. But the outside of the dumpling is crisp and golden. When, I don't know, 5-8 minutes is up, unveil. Steam is going to come out. The dumplings are going to be sitting in the residual water, and you just lift them and put them onto a platter or whatever to serve with a little dipping sauce. That's lunch. So, steaming dumplings, that's like, that's the fry and steam way. Of course, you know, you can steam them in a basket as well, but the fry and steam way always gets people a little bit because of the need to be very quick with doing all of the components to get them perfect. And the steam and all of that makes people nervous, right? So if you perfect that and not be nervous and just do it, then it's a technique that you'll use over and over and over again. So you've learned a new skill. Moving on to dinner. Here's something that's kind of easy. You may have done it before. Mac and cheese from scratch. So doing that, what you're doing is a couple things. You're making a bechamel, which is a daughter sauce from a mother sauce, which is French, right? French mother sauces. And you are going to add cheese to it, so that's more of a bechamel, right? So you're learning how to do that. You're learning how to make a roux, R-O-U-X, by putting the butter and the flour together before you add the milk, right? And then, of course, it's, are you going to make it in the pot, which I think gives you a creamier, more luscious mac and cheese, rather than baking it, which gives you a more condensed and not as creamy mac and cheese. But the baked kind, you can put breadcrumbs on and get them, you know, give them a crunch. The other thing I like to do is any recipe that calls for not boiling your noodles first before you add them to the cheese sauce, but instead building the whole thing in one pot. For instance, I know this video is long and I apologize, but there is a wonderful butternut squash mac and cheese that I make, where you literally cook the squash in the water, in the pot, and then you add your pasta, everything cooks together. And then the butternut squash kind of dissipates, and then you put in the cream and the butter and whatnot, and it just comes together. It's so creamy and delicious, has a little bit of sweetness from the butternut squash. Really yummy. So there's lots of recipes out there. Learn how to make it from scratch. It's so much better than the box. Please, believe me. And believe the star, because they want you to learn that skill, right? So, rough puff pastry, dumplings fried and then steamed, and then, of course, a homemade mac and cheese. These are things you should keep in your back pocket as a chef, right? They'll come in handy, just as the star. Have faith and nourish yourself. Nourish all those around you with your kitchen magic. See you tomorrow.